Welcome to our podcast, When Life Gives You Lemons. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Palmy. We consider ourselves disability advocates and intend to highlight some disability issues and things we find interesting that we frequently encounter when we're out and about. Also, some history on disability that we find interesting. This year, we're going to include more of the interviews of the people that the disability affects. We hope you enjoy it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our podcast. We have a special guest. We're going to be talking about corneal dystrophy. I'm going to kind of gloss over the condition. He's going to act as my fact checker, and we'll let you know if that's complete BS, and he'll set us straight at that point. But we're not going to go into a lot of detail about the condition. We're going to go into the details of how it affects his life, what he can and cannot do or has to do differently. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Dennis Wong. I've had corneal dystrophy since I was very young. It was diagnosed young. Since I was about 8 years old was when I first knew about it. I'm now 64, and so that's given me a lifetime of understanding what it does to me and how it affects my life.
Okay, Dennis, let me read a little bit here. Dennis actually describes this better, but corneal dystrophy, according to my research, is a group of inherited disorders affecting cornea's clarity and structure. And that sounds to me like there are actually several different types, or more than one type anyway. The cornea matters because, especially as Dennis was describing earlier, the clarity of his vision depends on how messed up it gets by the crystals that grow in your eye. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And they don't really mention anything about that. Then it just goes into types of corneal dystrophies. Okay, epithelial dystrophies or stromal dystrophies or endothelial dystrophies, which is giving some alternate names as Fuchs dystrophy, posterior polymorpheous dystrophy. Do you need those ring a bell as far as
No,
which type you have?
no. In fact, I know my doctor and my sister, she's an ophthalmologist. She knows which type of dystrophy, but I've never really, all I've known it is as a corneal dystrophy. I never gone into specifically what type of dystrophy it was.
I don't think it really matters. Okay, one diagnosis from what you've described, it kind of affects your vision the way macular degeneration does, in that your field of vision gets progressively worse as the corneal scars, I guess, progress in your eyes.
Yes. So the actual dystrophy is like crystals underneath my cornea. And, the pressure that it puts on the cornea, it scratches it and it causes a buildup of scar tissues. And so, like you said, it's the vision is getting limited over time.
Okay, as far as symptoms and early warnings, it's got listed here blurred or fluctuating vision, light sensitivity and glare, recurrent corneal erosions, which I'm not sure that's something you would notice.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, it's
your
kind
eye doctor would, but
for me, when I have what like I would call an attack, is when that pressure of against my cornea actually breaks. The light actually lets through and I cannot see. I cannot function when I have this attack. And so and it's where I would have to basically, to recover from it, I would have to lie down, close my eyes, and let it heal over. And so usually when I have an attack, it would be like for part of the day where I just have to not go to work or not go to school and just rest my eyes and let it heal. Then hopefully it'll be within a day I would be all right. But my vision is, I can notice the sensitivity to light and being able to walk outside and function properly. I can see that sometimes after a very difficult attack, my vision is noticeably worse.
we talked about this briefly before. You did not drive, am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, how long has it been since you drove?
Let's see, I stopped driving by the time I was about 30 years old.
Wow. Did you keep working after you stopped driving?
Yes. What I ended up doing was depending on my wife, who would take me to work, or I would use carpools. So wherever I worked, I had a carpool, and someone would take me to work, and I would pay them to basically carpool, and that worked really well, until it reached a point where I couldn't function.
Okay, one of the things I noticed when we were talking here before was, okay, how long have you lived here?
How long have I lived here in Cape Girardeau?
Yes.
For about 5 years.
Okay. There is an organization, I'm not saying that you can't use now, but you may be able to use in the future if that path leads you back to work. Great. But they are specifically for taking disabled people to and from work. And I don't believe it costs anything, but there will be, of course, certain days that pop up that your wife is not able to drive you to or from. And it's nice to know there's something like that to fall back on. I'll get you their information after we're done here.
What is the organization?
The organization, let me think for a minute. The organization is called SADI, which is an acronym for Southeast Missouri Disability Incorporated, I believe.
Okay. I've heard of SADI before. I contacted them to see about different equipment, and see if they subsidize or they know of different equipment. So thank you.
Yeah, they used to provide people with transportation to and from work. I know that because I called them up, tried to get a ride to and from a doctor's appointment. They said, we're really only focused on taking people to and from work. So, yeah, I got my education there.
Thank you.
Used another source, but anyway, I hope that it's of use to you in the future. Your life experiences. Describe for a bit, the listeners a little bit about the growth crystals and how that limits your vision and your eyes. The pain incorporated in that as well.
Well, there's nothing I can do to eliminate the crystals. They were inherited. So my sister and my dad both experienced it, but for whatever reason, I had more chronic case. When these crystals happen, it's like I said before, it's similar to an attack. And so I never know when the attack is going to happen. I do know it tends to happen when I'm stressed, when there's a lot of pressure that's being put on me. I do try to do some preventative things like eye drops and lotions and things like that for my eyes to help out. But when the attack actually happens, I basically kind of shut down. I don't feel like I can do anything with my eyes closed. So even cooking, even walking, even reading, it's so painful that I can't even open my eyes and see what's happening. And so the default is, okay, just lie in bed and wait till it recovers. And sometimes it could be just a couple hours. But sometimes it's so strong that it takes the whole day just to recover. So, like when I was in school, there was nothing I can do other than talk to my classmates and say, "Did you take notes?" At work, it's making that emergency call and saying, "I need time off." And so that was frustrating because I had no control over these attacks. And so I couldn't, even though things may have been urgent at work, I would tell my boss, and 75% of the time they were understanding. There were 25% where I just had to still try to bulldoze through it.
Yeah.
And that became hard. You just did the best you could with the circumstances.
Now, is it a condition where the lighting environment helps you or hurts you?
Environment definitely plays a factor. If I'm around like heavy equipment and where the lighting is not very good, it's relatively dark. A lot of my work took me to machines and I work with people. But sometimes working on machines, they're not located in the most lit area. The lighting would be poor. And so being able to read the instruments, being able to know where the proper settings is, or read the settings, or read the dial became really frustrating. It at times actually where I take my phone, take a picture of it, and then enlarging it just to see. Whereas what I was doing, what should only take just a couple seconds to do, took much, much longer.
Yeah, I've run into that myself. Just like answering the door once, putting locks on it. Okay, I've got to get the arms on the wheelchair down because I usually have them up. I've got to back up, making sure I don't run over dogs. I've got to get to the door, open it, and I can't open it all the way because it runs in my wheelchair. So I have to get my hand on the handle, open it a little bit, and then back up so I can see what's going on. by that time, usually whoever it was that rang the doorbell is gone.
Simple things that people take for granted, like even using a screwdriver, whether it's a Phillips or cross, and being able to line the tool to the proper location becomes harder when you're trying to find a latch or trying to find something. And the location of it, if it's poorly lit, you're struggling just to unhinge or to unlock something becomes more difficult.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed I have problems with this sometimes is like and I use the same workaround you did take a picture of it with my phone, is the serial number or tag or whatever I'm looking for is located in some awkward position where if I get myself into that awkward position, it's going to be in badly for me. So I go and stick my arm out, taking a picture of it, and making sure I read it to make sure I got it.
Exactly. I like your awkward position because now even plugging in something where if it's an awkward position, I would have to ask my wife to do it for me because of the positioning, and I can't see well enough to actually align everything together.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense because take like electrical outlets. They're so I want to say complex. They're still two prongs, but unless you have them lined up exactly they should be, sometimes you just can't seem to get it in there.
And with the vision being blurry, everything is in small print. Every mail that you get, they want to cram pack everything in a small letter that everything fits. Instruction books, technical manuals, they're no longer in big print. Yes, they do use like pictures, but then the letterings that refer to the different spots, it's hard to read. Is that an A? Is that a number? And so all that fits into, and I'm an engineer. I got to know the technical specs. I got to know how to break something down step by step and understand the process. So if you can't even read the manual, which is small print, and even though it's pictures, you can't read the lettering properly, it becomes difficult.
Yeah, sometimes the instructions are like not the way to go.
No, it's very manual. And so I will now cheat. I'll look for the YouTube video that walks through it.
I think a lot of the tradesmen we've had doing work on our house at various times or another relied a lot on YouTube. Sitting there listening to some pop song or whatever they may have played in the background and that's how that works.
We just recently put in a security light over on our garage. And it was interesting because I wasn't confident enough to go through the instructions, so I couldn't read the instructions. And my wife was scared of all the instructions that went in there. And we had a person come in, assemble it, then climb up the ladder and install it, only to come to find out that he missed a couple steps. And so I was able to go back to the YouTube video and see all the steps. And then it was like, oh, this security light isn't working because the light isn't coming on. Or when we do the programming, it didn't work. And so that YouTube broke it down step by step by step. And then I had to show that to the installer. So, whereas in the past, I was confident enough in my reading ability and in my visual to learn it that I could have put it together in a half an hour, no problem. But now, since with my vision, my confidence has gone lower. And so it becomes harder.
Yes, I completely understand. Sometimes just being a non-technical average consumer, the pictures don't help in the instructions because you're always wondering, okay, did I miss, my reading is, is that what this is? I think we had, when we were assembling furniture here, Bombi had, like, for some reason, the legs were not looking correctly. And what it was is the manufacturer had packaged them as one thing together.
They're a wonderful warning system.
That's our complex, advanced, super advanced alarm system. If you look on the website, Sasha is our head of HR, and Rashak is our head of security. Okay, I want to explain something for our listeners here. Obviously, you can't tell because Dave in front of me is an Asian man. Okay, what I'd like to get, you're telling me a story about the different stages of having your eye. At first, you get kind of like the wiping the cornea off. Eventually, you have to have your cornea replaced. If you don't mind, would you go through the story of the difficulties you had doing those?
Yeah. The first thing that when I was younger, the solution was stronger and stronger glasses. So eventually my glasses became very thick, like, Coke bottle glasses. It reached a point where glasses no longer became effective. And so the next alternative was to do what they called a PTK, which was basically taking a laser to my cornea and basically cutting away some of the scar tissues, and then they would wipe it off. So the way they did that, they would strap me in a Star Wars chair, pry my eye open. So there was an actual fixture to hold my upper and lower eye open. And so it wouldn't be moved. And I couldn't move at that point. Then the doctor would have this laser and would basically cut away to it. But it was like a puff. It felt like a puff of air. It was, broken up. And then she would take a cloth, a real gentle cloth, and wipe it away. And it was weird because I was aware of what was happening. You would think that they would, totally deaden me, but I could still feel what was going on. And the sensation was that there would be all this flying debris. When I actually looked out after that, you would see all these tiny growths kind of moving around. And so that was the next step. But my eyes continued to get worse and worse. And even after doing this PDK, it would still revert back. And so the next step was an actual cornea transplant, where they would cut out my cornea, and then I would have to get a donor cornea, and they would actually sew it in. So even right now, I can feel the stitches. The stitches are one of those ones that would dissolve. It'd be ones that, and so my visit right afterwards, they had to cut out some of the stitches because it was rubbing against, it was irritating my eye. And so then the last part would be is what they're trying right now, and that's taking what they call the scleral lens, which is larger than a normal soft contact lens, and they would fit it in. But because of my Chinese heritage, it took two people, one to hold my eyelid above and another one to hold it down, and put that lens in. And it took a good 10, 15 minutes of two people. Then the funny part was, okay, now it's your turn. And I'm still struggling with that.
See, I think if it were me instead of you, it would take more than two people because there'd have to be at least one bar to hold me down because I don't think I could take that.
It was funny. One of the people that was holding my upper eyelid said he couldn't even do that. So these were the people, and but it was like afterwards he goes, but I've got confidence in you. Sure, you can do it. That pep talk. But it doesn't describe the struggling of actually doing it. Even after taking it out, my eyes felt really sore. And so there's that fear factor that goes into it.
But how long does it take to recover from something like that?
So I was told anywhere between a year and a year and a half. Everyone came to me and said, oh, can you see better? Can you see better? And there was incremental improvement. It's a work in process.
Right?
But it's not a dramatic overnight, oh, I can see 20/20. Even now, with the transplant, I am 2200, which is miles away. But when I have the scleral lens, it's 2030. So the opportunity's there. But the struggle to get there is another thing.
Yeah, but okay, as far as treatment, I think you talked about this earlier before we got on the podcast. Eye drops. I don't know what this is. Hypertonic saline. Is that what the eye drops are mainly?
So there are an eye drop now. When I was going through this process, there had to be some kind of steroids that I took. Also wanted to kill any of the bacteria. But ever since the surgery, I have to take these eye drops every day. I can still get rejected. My cornea can still be rejected. So if we think of it as a living organism, I have to take the drops every day because if I don't, it could actually, the transplanted cornea could be rejected by my own body.
Okay, one of the options that we talked about, I've never heard of these therapies. These are research and future directions. Gene therapy, regenerative medicine and advanced imaging. Improvements in corneal transplant techniques and what scientists don't fully understand. Okay, if you can go into what a doctor or a scientist or a researcher doesn't really understand, what would you say is the most common thing they don't understand?
I think a lot of doctors, I think it's one thing where they cut and they do a transplant.
Right?
I think the assumption is going through the journey of what becomes the challenges. I've got a wonderful doctor from the Washington University, St. Louis. She has done many, many of these type of cases like mine, and that's why I chose her. But as a doctor, you can also get dragged into some of the personal issues.
Right?
One thing that she's very good at is drawing boundaries. And so she's empathetic, but there are certain boundaries she knows that soon become rabbit holes.
Right?
And she doesn't want to get drawn into some of these rabbit holes. And I understand. It's wonderful to look at some of these things, and there's all these new advances. But ultimately, it becomes where you've got to trust the doctor and trust that they're doing the right thing for you. It's a major decision for someone to actually do the surgery. So to answer your question, it's a delicate balance. It's you want them to be more empathetic, but at the same time you understand their situations, and there are some things that they would rather not get into the details, and you may not have all the same information and perspective that they have.
Now we get to a new phase of the interview. Obviously, somebody out there may have a question about this that is not covered in my computer generated notes, and perhaps they want to ask you a question about treatment options or abilities, if you will. How can they get in touch with you?
If they want to reach me, I can leave my phone number so that this way they can contact me and we can talk about the circumstance and understand some of the differences. I notice that sometimes if I give like an email, there's so much to talk about, so many questions. And it's harder just to type out the questions. A simple, direct conversation is I found more appropriate, like through a phone call. Again, a lot of this is my own experience. I don't ever want to minimize and say that what I've done is the same thing that they're doing, or what my doctor prescribed is what your doctor would prescribe. I think it's good, though, to know that there are other people that are going through the same corneal dystrophy and understanding the type of dystrophy and what is available. I also believe that there's a strong community that's out there where people can reach and feel like they're heard and feel like they're not alone. I think that's important.
Okay, what we can do in addition to that, because you may not want to broadcast your telephone number to news. It's going to listen to this at some future day or time. They can always get hold of you through our Facebook page.
Yeah.
We have a Facebook page that's solely for this podcast, www.facebook.com. And then I believe it being a public group, all you have to do is search for the group with the same name as our podcast, When Life Gives You Lemons. So I will try to make sure that to keep an eye on what people post and make you aware of anything that is not there. That way you don't have to read and scroll through the computer. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So again, folks, if you want to listen to our episodes on this or future episodes or past episodes, you can always download them off our website, www.whenlifegivesyoulemons.net. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.